Creator, you can access cards on your sideboard, and Hamilton has some graveyard hate that he can wish for, as it were, but it's probably just way too slow in this matchup, right?
I mean, you would think so, but the way the games play out, the Dredge deck doesn't really have a super fast clock. It usually relies on going pretty wide and then finishing the job with Conflagrate. But with things like Thought Not Seer, sometimes you get down early. Reality Smasher, you start pressuring their life total quickly, and you see here on the play, this Chalice of the Void on 1 is already going to lock down Faithless Looting from Colin's Mullen. And why I didn't have it on turn 1, any that he ends up dredging over, he'll never be able to flash those back.
Yeah, that can definitely be impactful. And my understanding, Hamilton has a power plant and a mine.
Yeah.
Things going pretty well for him.
Important to note with Karn the Great Creator as well is that there is one copy of Tormod's Crypt in the sideboard. So if you hit 4 mana, sometimes you go Karn the Great Creator, minus it, get that Tormod's Crypt, and you have access to Graveyard Hate immediately.
Yeah, that could be really powerful here. We see Mullen had a Bloodstained Mire, fetch that to 19, has a Stomping Ground. See if he can go to work on turn 2, checking for a Cathartic Reunion here.
Now, I'm pretty sure Hamilton actually has Tron naturally on turn 3 for next turn. Now it's going to depend on whether or not he has something big to play to capitalize on that mana.
Mullen's going to fetch a Bloodstained Mire down to 18, finds a basic mountain. Certainly looks like it could be Reunion mana, but it'd be a lot weaker if it was just a Life from the Loam.
Yeah, if it's Life from the Loam, I think Michael's going to run away with this. But if Collins has a Cathartic here and has a really big turn, it might be enough to overcome a really powerful start. This turn 2 Chalice, turn 3 Karn, or sorry, not Karn, turn 3 Planeswalker off of the Tron mana.
So it is Reunion. Discards Conflagrate Stinkweed Imp. He'll dredge his first draw there with the Imp. Narcomoeba.
It's a good start.
Stinkweed Imp, Blast Zone, second Stinkweed Imp, Prized Amalgam. So he'll be dredging 3 times here.
Yeah, this is really powerful, and that Narcomoeba is going to come back with another Narcomoeba, and currently 2 Prized Amalgams. Let's see what the third Stinkweed Imp brings. A Creeping Chill. And that's it.
Yeah, some Faithless Looting's there, but that Chalice on 1 should turn that off. But still a lot of power here.
Yeah, that's 8 power and a Creeping Chill on turn 2. With a hand that's still really full. So this is a great turn from Collins Mullen with that Conflagrate in the graveyard as well. Can potentially deal lethal next turn if he gets a little lucky on some Bloodghast maybe. Hits another Creeping Chill perhaps.
Yeah, life totals off that first chill should be Hamilton at 17 to Mullen at 21. We'll go back Hamilton's way. Draws Reality Smasher. Not really the most impactful kind of thing in this matchup. As you mentioned, it looks like that Urza's Tower is hanging out in Hamilton's hand, so he should have Tron on this turn if he's into that.
Yeah, he's just trying to figure out the best way to utilize all of his mana this turn to give himself a chance to win. This started from Collins. He didn't have a turn 1 Faithless Looting, but that turn 2 Cathartic Reunion was backbreaking.
Yeah, really good hits off those dredges.
Now, it looks like Hamilton actually has an All Is Dust, which could potentially clean up the battlefield, but there's a very good chance next turn that Collins able to find something like a Bloodghast and just rebuild immediately.
Well, plays the tower. He's going to cast that All His Dust. That'll clean up the battlefield for now.
Yeah, I like it. This buys him some time. Maybe he draws Karn the Great Creator. Maybe Collins just misses because his Faithless Lootings are locked down. You know, if he dredges here, he needs to hit a Bloodghast, and he has all 3 Stinkweed Imps in hand, so he's only going to get to dredge 3 with this Life from the Loam.
Yeah, so he's picking up that Loam. That will be the dredge. We got a Bloodghast.
There it is.
Yeah, that is a fine enough hit.
Yeah, he just needed some way to return the Prize Amalgams to keep that pressure up. And that'll do it with a land in hand. He can also just fill up his hand for a Conflagrate in a turn or 2.
So he's going to play Copperline Gorge, brings back Bloodghast. 2 Prized Amalgams will be coming back later. Here's a tap of 3 mana. Is it a Chalice check forthcoming? It is. Flashback Faithless Looting. All right, Hamilton sees it. No thank you.
All right, so we're going to make 8 power. The Chalice countered the Faithless Looting. And, of course, with the mistrigger policy in place in competitive play, it is the person's responsibility who owns the card creating the trigger to remember it. So, happens a lot, namely with Chalice of the Void. The Chalice check, if you will, is honestly one of the more fun parts of the card. 6 mana here from Michael. Looks like he's going to slam an Ugin the Ineffable perhaps generate a couple 2/2s over the next few turns if he can keep it alive.
Yeah, so it will go up. So that's going to put this 2/2 Spirit token into play. When that token dies, this card here goes to Hamilton's hand. Kind of playing it like a morph right now. There's a nice manifest overlay. And it's going to discount the cost as Reality Smasher. So just the Urza's Tower casts that now.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. It's funny, too. I'm pretty sure he could actually cast a Chalice of the Void for X=1 off of the Ugin this turn if he wanted to. No need to play the second one, though. Wants to save that for an X=2 later on. Though that namely doesn't stop Conflagrate, which is a pretty big deal, because when Conflagrate is on the stack, its casting cost will be whatever X is plus red.
Mm-hmm. So Reality Smasher hung back to try to block for the Ugin, though there's already that Conflagrate in Mullen's graveyard. He could clean up the battlefield with that this turn if he was interested. He's going to dredge Dark Blast, finds a Creeping Chill.
Yeah, and so now he can go Life from Mullen back 3 lands, plays land for the turn, and cast Conflagrate. I think for X equals somewhere around 8 or 9, and he could deal 7 across the 2 creatures, couple to the face, check the Ugin, and do some damage to the face as well.
So Hamilton to 14, Mullen to 24.
Got to be careful with the Reality Smasher, though, because that spell can be countered if you do not keep 1 card around in your hand to discard to it.
There's ample lands in the graveyard if Mullen just wants to Life from the Loam into Conflagrate. Also with 2 Amalgams and a Bloodghast, if you remove the blockers, you have 1 card left over, I suppose, if you cover the Smasher. So you can't get in for lethal this turn.
Well, you could also just do 2 to the Spirit and 2 to the rest of the face. That unlocks basically 1 Prize Amalgam, generating a little bit of extra damage. And with the Life from the Loam, he's threatening quite a bit.
He's going to start with an attack with all the creatures, and those are all going for Hamilton. He's not going to worry about that Ugin.
Yeah. So 2's going to get through. Collins can't quite do 12, but he can certainly finish off the Reality Smasher and do a bit of damage to the face or kill the Ugin the Ineffable.
So damage happens. That card's going to go to Hamilton's hand. He'll fall to 12. We'll see exactly what Mullen wants to do with this Conflagrate here.
Yeah, he's double checking the card to make sure that he understands exactly how that trigger works, because he is going to have to effectively pay an extra card in order to resolve his spell.
Yeah. Want some clarification on the wording, probably. Sometimes these effects say if this card is the only target.
Right. Now the cost reduction here probably doesn't matter that much anymore from the Ugin the Ineffable, but given that Hamilton actually got an extra card off of that Spirit dying, means that he could put that static effect to good use. Maybe play up to 3 or 4 cards next turn should he draw a spell.
Yeah, could definitely go to work next turn, and depending what Mullen's able to do here, Hamilton, we could see Karn plus Micah Sith Lattice next turn.
Yeah, I mean, if he has 10 mana, or if he just doesn't deal with the Ugin. All right, so he's holding on to the 1 card to pay, and then he's just discarding the rest. They're all what I like to call the trash whenever you're doing normal dredge things.
Yeah, so we started with Life from the Loam, so an abundance of cards in hand. That got back Blast Zone, Stomping Ground, Wooded Foothills. And now just lining up discards.
Yeah, if he wants to take care of the Smasher, he's going to send 2 to the Smasher, and then either the rest at face or 5 at Ugin, and then the rest at face. Because there is three still on the Smasher from the Prize Amalgam attack.
Likely that this is the first time that Mullen's played against Ugin in Modern.
I mean, likely the first time he's cast a Conflagrate targeting a Reality Smasher as well. I'm not keen on exactly the all the decks that Collins Mullen plays, but I have not seen him play Dredge before.
I think he has a few results with the deck.
All right, so he's going to discard 7, 2 to the Rowdy Smasher, 5 to the Ugin, and then discarding the Narcomoeba to the trigger, keeping 1 card in hand. So he has Hamilton down to 12. But he only has 1 card in hand and no more Conflagrate in the graveyard.
Yeah, so he cleaned up the battlefield. We'll see how Hamilton can turn things around. His hand does not look good. I'm getting a glimpse of Matter Reshaper, and I think he drew another Chalice of the Void for turn. There's a basic waste that's been hanging out.
I'm going to ask you a question about sequencing, because last turn was a pretty significant error, I think. So Mullins attacks with his creatures first. If he had done exactly the same thing that he did there, where he goes 2 at the Spirit, 5 at the Eldrazi, discards a card, then he sends 5 at the Ugin and does 2 to the face, or 3 to the face actually, with the other Prize Amalgam, and still has a Prize Amalgam on the battlefield. Seems slightly better, and stuff like that, sometimes you notice a little too late.
Yeah. Yeah, it could have been a situation where things got kind of complex.
Yeah,
Not
sure.
clear that he had the full turn mapped out before he started with the game actions.
Yeah, and that's common in Modern just because of how complex some of the board states become.
All right, so Matter Reshaper, Chalice on 2. We'll see Mullen will dredge Stinkweed Imp. Another Prized Amalgam goes to the graveyard. Another Faithless Looting, but there is still that Chalice on 1. He'll attack with Bloodghast Prized Amalgam. The block he wanted was Bloodghast being blocked, but the Reshaper will trade with Amalgam, and a Karn picked up for Hamilton.
Yeah, but it might be a little too late. Just depends on what he can get with it. Collins actually has the land to get back Bloodghast, which is going to bring back 2 copies of Prize Amalgam, generating 10 total power. He can also hard cast the Stinkweed Imp from hand.
So this is a situation. I think one of the cards in Hamilton's wish board there is a Wormcoil Engine.
Yep, he does have Wormcoil Engine, actually bring back 3 Prize Amalgam, so he can potentially shut down most of the attacks with that Karn the Great Creator. I'm going to take a look. So normally you would say the Mycosynth Lattice, but here he actually can potentially just get Ensnaring Bridge as well.
Okay.
So that's not a bad one. He has a lot of potential hits here. And then, so he can get Ensnaring Bridge, and then the following turn he can actually get Witchbane Orb, and that might actually lock the game up. Because if you can't Conflagrate Face, Creeping Chill doesn't target the player, I don't think. Maybe it does. I got to read the text on it. But at 10, and there's already 2 gone, has the fade for 1 turn, basically.
Yeah, we'll see how Hamilton navigates this. Ugin the Ineffable is the cast, facing down 3 Prized Amalgams and 2 Bloodghasts. That'll discount the Karn.
It lets him reduce the Karn cost and the Ensnaring Bridge cost. So that Karn only costs 2. He floated 3, so he has 1 floating. He can get Ensnaring Bridge and then cast it for 1. That's huge.
Yeah, so there's Ugin. Here's Karn, -2. Go to the sideboard. Snaring Bridge being pulled to the front, and he will cast it.
Oh my. This Karn the Great Creator is just a 1-card combo. It's so good when you have a bunch of mana. Just becomes this insane toolbox. Sometimes you Mycosynth Lattice, ends the game if your opponent doesn't have a creature on the battlefield. Sometimes you get Ensnaring Bridge, and if they don't have an answer to it, they're dead. Collins Mullen here can't play a spell. Can't play any 1s or 2s, and that's the majority of his deck. I guess he could dredge and cast Stinkweed Imp. But next turn, Michael Hamilton's probably just going to get Witchbane Orb, and the game is going to end.
Yeah, really impressive stuff here. Colorless Eldrazi just playing a prison game.
I actually figured out a way that Michael loses this game. He pluses a bunch with the Ugin, and then Collins goes for a Conflagrate on all the tokens, and all the 2/2s die, and the cards go to Hamilton's hand. So I think he needs to be actually careful on how many times he pluses that Ugin if he wants to lock up this game.
Yeah, that's definitely true. He does have the option to just go and wish for that Tormod's Crypt.
Yeah, Tormod's Crypt is potentially a decent one. So one of the cool parts about Karn, you just have this huge wish toolbox. It makes some very complicated turns when you have a bunch of mana.
Yeah, really impressive stuff, and I like Eldrazi-tron as a home for the card a lot.
No, absolutely.
All right, Mullen's going to see what he can do. He'll dredge Stinkweed Imp again. There's another Creeping Chill. Hamilton to 7, Mullen to 27. Another Prized Amalgam hitting the graveyard. That's the 4th one.
All right. Draw for Michael. Doesn't matter too much what it is. What matters most is what he gets off of this Karn the Great Creator. And with his entire sideboard at his disposal, he has quite a few options, but that Witchbane Orb is looking mighty tasty if you ask me. With the Ensnaring Bridge on the battlefield, one of the only ways he can lose is via Conflagrate. But Mycosynth Lattice does it too. I didn't even think about that. Shuts down all your opponent's lands. And with only one copy of Creeping Chill left to hit for Collins, this Mycosynth Lattice could just lock the game up.
Yeah, he'll grab the Lattice. No more activating your lands. Ensnaring Bridge shutting off the attacks. He still has that card he drew in hand. See if he can get rid of that. But with Ugin, it's kind of easy. Should be able to cast most of his spells. Ugin's going to destroy that Stinkweed Imp, so maybe holding on to that card. I think there's a conversation about the amount of loyalty.
No, it's because
the color.
Mycosynth Lattice, I think, takes the color away.
Okay.
So I don't think you can kill the Stinkweed Imp after you've cast the Lattice, which is a minor mistake from Michael, and that's actually going to be a pretty big deal because
the Karn's at 1.
The Karn's at 1, and the Stinkweed Imp can attack and kill it. All right, we're having a judge discussion real quick.
Oh my!
Head in hands, Hamilton.
That is the face of a man who may have made a mistake.
Yeah, this is not great. We're going to get this resolved and figure everything out first, but we're going to come back to the booth and we're going to talk about this specific interaction a little bit because it's new and it's relatively complicated. And Mycosynth Lattice is one of those cards that's been around for a long time, hasn't really seen a whole lot of play, but you start pairing it with some cards with really powerful static effects like Karn the Great Creator, and you start to get into some situations that you've never been in before, especially in Modern. So definitely something that's kind of easy to muck up, and we're just going to let the judge handle all that, and then we'll come back whenever they are ready to resume play. But that mistake potentially devastating for Hamilton because if that Karn dies, the Mycosynth Lattice no longer does anything.
Yes.
Notably, though, still has a Snaring Bridge on the battlefield. So literally only Stinkweed Imp can attack right now. So, yeah.
And you still have the Ugin going.
Still have the Ugin going. And I believe the minus is you're unable to actually target the creature you targeted. So he's going to get to undo that probably and then plus and make a 2/2.
Yep.
But, again, we're just going to come back in a minute whenever they're done with that. So this particular matchup is rather interesting for a number of reasons. Dredge usually wins game 1. That I think a lot of people kind of understand that. It attacks from an angle that a lot of people aren't really prepared to beat. The graveyard is a zone that doesn't usually see a ton of interaction in Standard, but as you get into older formats, it becomes this extra resource that a lot of decks utilize. And, we're seeing a lot of people leaning on things like Surgical Extraction, sometimes even the main deck of decks that wouldn't necessarily play it, in order to help out against things like Dredge, against things like Is It Phoenix, in order to contain these graveyard mechanics.
Yeah, definitely. And we're really seeing in this game the power of Karn the Great Creator.
Yeah.
Just what that toolbox is able to do. Everybody already has heard about the Mycosynth Lattice sort of combo, the one card Karn combo, but just that wish board, the access to Ensnaring Bridge in a deck that generates so much mana that it's often very easy to empty your hand. That's really powerful. Also the fact that you're a Chalice of the Void deck, that makes you good at protecting your bridges. I'm really liking Karn in this shell. But it does sound like our players have resolved their judge call. They're rewinding to prior to that Ugin activation because, as you mentioned, there's no legal target. You can't just go minusing when you can't do anything. So we'll go ahead and get back down to the match and resume play. Or not.
Yeah, there we go.
Or so.
All right, so the judges are kind of explaining why the ruling is what it is, and I think this might just be a case of things have not progressed too far. Hamilton likely receiving a warning, but obviously a warning is not a severe penalty. It's something that they do track so that it does not become habitual, and over time, if it is habitual, then further action is taken.
Yes.
But Hamilton here, this is just an innocent flub And unfortunately for him, I don't think he gets to take back the Mycosynth Lattice. And the Ugin the Ineffable can no longer kill the Stinkweed Imp. So that Stinkweed Imp's probably going to be able to kill the
This is interesting. Yeah, I'm seeing now why he wasn't casting his card in hand. It's a Dismember, and he only has colorless mana.
Yeah, he's going to have to take some damage to cast it, but that'll keep his card in the Great Creator alive, and that's all he needs at 3 life. But now Collins actually gets to dredge it if he hits Creeping Chill. I'm not sure. And now we're talking about colorless mana with Phyrexian mana, and I don't know how that works either, personally.
So you were talking about Mycosynth Lattice. I think it makes your lands also produce mana of any color. There's a lot of text on that card.
But I think maybe it makes the casting cost box of all cards also colorless. So 3 mana on an Urza's Tower actually just casts Dismember, I think.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, tight.
I would not consider myself a Mycosynth Lattice expert.
I mean, I think maybe 3 people in the world are qualified to be Mycosynth Lattice experts. Can we get Mycosynth Lattice on the screen? Just so we can talk. Thank you. All right, so Collins here is in a lot of trouble. I don't think he can do anything except dredge and hit Creeping Chill because he can't cast spells anymore.
Well, there's Creeping Chill.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the Mycosynth Lattice does allow him to use colorless mana on that Dismember, as far as I can tell. But in case you were wondering, we're going to get Mycosynth Lattice on the screen for you. But Mycosynth Lattice is a very strange card from, I believe that is either Darksteel or Fifth Dawn. I think it's Darksteel.
Darksteel.
But it's a card that does something to your hand and graveyard, and that's not something we're really all that used to. But all permanents are artifacts in addition to their types. All cards that aren't in play, spells, and permanents are all colorless. Players may spend mana as though it were mana of any color. So 3 colorless off of Urza's Tower lets him cast Dismember for 3 colorless mana. No damage dealt, and keeps him alive at 7 life against that Creeping Chill. Not quite enough to get the job done. And when you combine that with Karn the Great Creator's static effect of artifacts do not work for your opponent, Mycosynth Lattice plus Karn is a 1-card combo.
Yep. Mullen unable to attack, unable to tap lands for mana out of Creeping Chills.
Brutal.
Picks him up. Hamilton
Brutal.
takes that one down. We'll be going to our sideboards. So for Hamilton, a lot of his stuff is just this wishboard situation.
Yes. And of course, Wish is referring to the things from, I believe it was Odyssey block. Or was it Onslaught block?
No, it was Odyssey block. Judgment or Torment.
No, you're right. It was, yeah. So basically, you have a sideboard full of one-ofs that you use these wish cards to go get. Karn lets you search outside the game, and in tournament play, that specifically refers to your sideboard. So here, Hamilton just has a bunch of these weird one-ofs to go get with Karn, which means he's not doing that much sideboarding here. I think he's going to bring in just like a couple of the anti-graveyard cards, and then he's going to leave in 1 Tormod's Crypt probably in his sideboard to go get with Karn the Great Creator, I think.
And then the 2 cards that are not just artifacts that you can go grab, those 2 Ravenous Traps, and
yeah,
those should be a big factor here.
Slam dunks, yeah. So I think he's going to bring in the 2 Ravenous Traps, the Grafdigger's Cage and the Relic of Progenitus, and then leave the Tormod's Crypt there so that he has that tempo. Karn, go get Tormod's Crypt because it costs 0 and cast it on the same turn.
All right, and then for Collins Mullen on the dredge side of things, pretty diverse options on the sideboard. Let's take it card by card. He has 1 Ghost Quarter.
That can be decent at busting up the Tron plan from the deck, though the deck functions quite well even without Tron. I do expect Collins to bring it in, though, just because of how far behind he fell once Hamilton hit Tron on 3.
For Nature's Claim.
It doesn't really deal with Chalice of the Void, and I don't even really expect Chalice of the Void to still be in the deck. It was okay in that game, and maybe that's the game plan he has to go with because he can't really take cards out of his deck because of how his sideboard is built for Karn the Great Creator. I think that the Nature's Claims are fairly poor, but you know they might be a necessary evil.
3 Lightning Axe.
Kills large creatures and might be good enough, but we'll just killing Reality Smasher can buy you a lot of time, but it costs 2 cards discarded, 1 for it and 1 for the Smasher. It is okay against Thought-Knots here, though, so I can see it.
1 Assassin's Trophy.
It's okay. It deals with a lot of these weirdo Planeswalkers and Chalice of the Void and things like that. I like that and Ancient Grudge both coming in to pop off early Chalices.
Right, 3 Ancient Grudge.
Yeah, Ancient Grudge.
Like that a lot.
Yeah, coming in with the Assassin's Trophy,
Yep.
sorry. I got ahead of myself.
Yep. 2 Leyline of the Void.
Not really for this matchup. You want that for the mirror, things like Is It Phoenix?
All right, 1 Alpine Moon.
This one, I'm not a huge fan of the card in general, but if it's going to be in your sideboard, you're going to want to bring it in here. The lands are pretty important from the Eldrazi Tron side of things. Shutting down Eldrazi Temple, if that's what they start with, or shutting down their Tron lands, if that's what they start with. Both, decent hits for the Alpine Moon itself.
All right, so for everybody watching at home, we really appreciate you checking us out here on our Twitch page, twitch.tv/SCGTour. We have all kinds of content coming out here. If you would like to subscribe to our program, which we would also greatly appreciate, you get a chance to vote for the quarterfinals, see what matchups you want to see at every open weekend, custom emoticons and badge, including a Roll Tide.
Roll Tide!
It's only $4.99 a month.
Yeah, and on top of that, you don't see the Twitch commercials, which is nice. And if you sub, I will likely give you a shout-out on Versus Live. But only if you sub during Versus Live.
So Tuesday or
today.
Thursday.
No, sub right now.
But yeah, we're live, every weekend that we have a show stop on the SCG Tour. As you just mentioned, Versus Live every Tuesday and Thursday. Commander Versus on Wednesdays.
Yeah, we got a lot of content on this year SCG Tour channel. A lot of live content brought to you by StarCityGames.com.
Players shuffling up for game number 2. Who do you think gains more from sideboarding here?
I don't know, because I'm not a huge fan of the options Collins has in this matchup, but at the same time, Hamilton has a pretty restricted sideboard thanks to that Karn the Great Creator package. So I would say both players roughly bring in around 4 to 5 cards, and neither very happy about it.
Well, looks like they're keeping on 7. Bloodstained Mire go for Mullen.
Drew a black card. What do you think that black card is? Spoiler alert, it's Ravenous Trap.
It's not a bad one.
Yeah, it's a good one. So Hamilton here has basically his early protection to make sure he doesn't get absolutely obliterated here on turn 2 with a Cathartic Reunion. On top of that, he has to start with a Tron land and Expedition map, so if he can follow that with a second Tron land, he's threatening a lot of mana really fast.
Yeah, thing is definitely going well for him. As we'll see, Mullen goes to 19 to find a stomping ground. Cathartic Reunion pulled to the front of the hand. He'll fetch a Wooded Foothills down to 18.
Yeah, and then he's going to go for this Cathartic Reunion. Now, I'm really curious to see when Michael Hamilton pulls the trigger on the Ravenous Trap, because personally, I like to wait until there are a significant number of cards in the graveyard that utilize the graveyard, but some people also like to just neuter the dredgers early on. So if Collins discards like Stinkweed Imp and Life from the Loam or Bloodghast, Hamilton may go ahead and fire it off because the third card did already hit from that fetch land.
So Mullen shocks to 16 for a Blood Crypt, Cathartic Reunion, discard Bloodghast and Stinkweed Imp. Here's a Dredge of the Imp. Dark Blast, Narcomoeba, Wooded Foothills, Faithless Looting, Copperline Gorge. Dredge Dark Blast, Stinkweed Imp, Faithless Looting, Bloodghast, Dredge Stinkweed Imp.
Now this is not a bad use here for the Ravenous Trap because you hit an Amalgam, 2 Narcomoebas, and 2 Bloodghast, because there's one originally discarded from the Cathartic. So this is a really good Ravenous Trap. It took away a lot of those creature-specific graveyard interactions.
Yep, Trap just hits all that with the Narcomoeba triggers on the stack. Now Mullen has a fistful of Dredgers.
Yeah, but he does have another Cathartic Reunion, so he can kind of re-up again next turn.
Check on Hamilton's second turn for a second Tron piece. Looks like there's a tower at the front of the hand. So.
Yeah, he has a tough choice here, though, because he can go for turn 2 Chalice of the Void on X equals 1, potentially lock out Faithless Lootings, but that's not going to do it because Collins does have Cathartic Reunion as his play for the turn, probably.
He lands on Tower Go. We'll go Mullen's way. There's that Cathartic Reunion. Discards 2 Stinkweed Imps.
Yeah, so he's going to dredge at least 10 and probably going to be upwards of 13 or so. First dredge here. Let's see what we get. Notably, 2 Narcomoeba and 2 Bloodghast gone. So 4 of the 8 ways to bring back Prize Amalgam are gone, as well as one of the Prize Amalgams. But still a bunch of Creeping Chills, still a bunch of Conflagrates, and still a bunch of Life from the Loams.
So far we have another Stinkweed Imp dredged over and 2 Creeping Chills. The Ghost Quarter also going to the graveyard, so that'll matter for that Life from the Loam that was dredged as well.
Yeah, but it might be a turn too late because Hamilton's going to assemble Tron this turn and maybe go ballistic on the following turn.
And we're still looking at the 3rd draw on the reunion for Mullen, and he's going to go ahead and just go for the most. Stinkweed Imp dredged again. That one's going to find another Life from the Loam, an Ancient Grudge, and another Narcomoeba.
So the Grudge is decent, but Hamilton is, in my opinion, pretty likely next turn to go Chalice on X equals 2, because that'll shut down the Grudge, potentially Assassin's Trophy, but namely shuts down Life from the Loam and another potential Cathartic Reunion.
So those chills go off. Hamilton to 14, Mullen to 22. Narcomoeba on the battlefield.
Dredge here doing Dredge things. Opponent had a really good Ravenous Trap, but still a pretty good turn 3 here for Collins. Hamilton with an equally good start, though, with turn 1 map, turn 2 finding Tron.
Gemstone Mine go for Mullen. Now, that was good dredging in the sense of what he got for his mana.
Yeah.
But as far as battlefield presence, it was a little bit lacking.
Well, he got most of those creature-centric things stripped from him already on that first Ravenous Trap. Remember, 2 Narcomoebas down, just hit a 3rd. 1 Prize Amalgam down, 2 Bloodghast down. So not a whole lot of creatures left to dredge. Going to be heavily reliant on Life from the Loam and Conflagrate, which is why I expect Hamilton to go after those Life from the Loams here with that Chalice of the Void on X equals 2.
Yeah, he's going to crack the map to complete Tron. Shuffle and cut, and then we'll see exactly what he will do with his 7 mana.
He also could go Chalice on 1 to lock down a potential flashback on Faithless Looting, and then follow that up with a Reality Smasher and start attacking. But with Collins at 22, thanks to those 2 Creeping Chills already, his life total is pretty high, and I think Hamilton is going to look more for lock pieces than anything. Karn the Great Creator or something like that would be phenomenal here.
Right. Mindstone, Mana Floating. He'll sacrifice that. Hand must be lacking if that's where we're starting.
I mean, he has some Eldrazi, but that's not really where he wants to be. He needs to establish a lock here. He needs to put Collins, in a headlock, because if the game just progresses and if all Hamilton does is cast creatures, I think Conflagrate, Life from the Loam, and Creeping Chill are going to be enough to get the job done.
And there is that Chalice on 2. That's going to turn off a lot of Mullen's action. And Hamilton does have some gas in the hand. I think 1 of each Reality Smasher, Matter Reshaper, and Thought-Knot Seer all hanging out.
Yeah. And if he draws a 2-mana land, another Tron piece, or an Eldrazi Temple, next turn he can play Thought-Knot Seer and Reality Smasher and get to work on Collins' life total. But more importantly, he wants to lock out those 2s first, which is why you saw him crack the Mind Stone for about half of his mana last turn, just trying to see if there's anything better to do. Doesn't find anything better to do, just goes for that Chalice of the Void to make sure the Ancient Grudges are locked down, Life from the Loam, Assassin's Trophy, things of that nature.
The dredge on Life from the Loam from Mullen. You see Ancient Grudge, Faithless Looting, Prized Amalgam hitting the graveyard. Lining up a flashback of Faithless Looting.
Yep, I like this from Collins. He's going to try to find the rest of his dredge creatures and looking to hit basically Bloodghast or something here before he plays his land.
Yeah, dredge Life from the Loam.
Is that the last dredger?
Yeah, nothing good came off of that.
That's the last dredger.
2 draws.
I just want to draw Faithless Looting.
Oh, yeah, yep, you're right.
So he's going to discard 2 Stinkweed Imp. His 4th Narcomoeba is stuck in his hand. That's devastating because now basically just has a couple of Bloodghast left in the deck to bring back any Prize Amalgams he may find.
2 Stinkweed Imps discarded. Narcomoeba attacks. Hamilton to 13, but I think doing pretty well at this stage in the game.
Yeah, if you're at 13 on turn 4 against a double Cathartic Reunion and flashback Faithless Looting draw, you're doing okay. That Ravenous Trap was big game.
It's like Hamilton drew Mind Stone for turn. That one's going to be turned off by the Chalice, so he's going to cast Reality Smasher. Seems a little bit better. That'll attack for 5, Mullen to 17.
Yeah, and then follow that up with a Matter Reshaper just to apply a little more pressure. I expect Hamilton's going to have to grind through some Stinkweed Imps here coming up. The Collins is probably going to naturally start casting because I don't think he has much going on in the graveyard that's not locked out by Chalice. He's going to dredge Stinky and just start casting them to block. Creeping Chill's a decent hit. Conflagrate's a good hit. Second Conflagrate's okay, but the second one is not nearly as good as the first because there's no more access to life from the loam.
So that Creeping Chill puts Hamilton to 10, Mullen to 20. He has quite a lot of cards in hand for these Conflagrates.
That's certainly true, and he can just keep chipping away with some flyers. So definitely going to attack for one here with that Narcomoeba to try to get into a lethal Conflagrate range, if I had to guess.
Let's say attack for one, Hamilton to 9.
I believe there is still one Creeping Chill left in the deck as well, so could go for that on the next turn. He has 8 cards in hand, so he can put Hamilton to 1.
You can just put Hamilton to 1 and then draw your card for turn and then flash back the other Conflagrate next turn.
Yeah, seems reasonable to me. He's going to force Hamilton to find an anti-graveyard card immediately and needs an answer to the Narcomoeba, both.
Tapping 3 mana, though. Mullen will cast Stinkweed Imp.
This is a fine defensive measure, but I like making your opponent have it in this spot because you're getting really close to getting locked out. Something like Karn the Great Creator off the top could be devastating. But here is if Collins blocks with the Stinkweed Imp, I think he's actually setting himself up for defeat. Next turn he can attack for 2, put Hamilton to 7. He has Conflagrate for X equals 8. I guess that's fine. He can probably still block. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of fine either way, especially based off of looking at Hamilton's hand. Another Reality Smasher joins the party. It's an attack for 13. Not quite enough.
Not quite enough, and it's a stout attack. But we're going to see Collins here block with that Stinkweed Imp and then go for Conflagrate Lethal on the following turn.
Doesn't even block. No need. Whatever. Go to 7. Thought Not Seer. Look at your hand. You get a card out, but there's just 2 attackers plus a draw for turn.
If he had blocked, he would have maybe lost.
Yeah.
Inches. A game of inches.
Stinkweed Imp's going to be grabbed by the Thought Not Seer. I imagine that we're going to see Mullen close this one on his turn, though.
Yeah, he's untapping pretty quick. He's got the win at hand. He's going to swing in here.
Attack you to 7.
What's that? I have 7 cards in hand. Bango, bingo, bongo. Zap ya.
All
Game
right.
3.
That one looked tough for Mullen for a minute, but he's able to pull it out despite that early Ravenous Trap.
Yeah, I mean, I really underestimated the strength of a found Conflagrate in that spot. Michael was pretty low from the 3 Creeping Chills that were found early on, and that Conflagrate dealing 7-8 damage on the turn it's cast is a pretty big deal, and Collins was able to really beat an exceptional draw from Hamilton. He had an early Ravenous Trap that hit a bunch of graveyard stuff. Turn 3 Tron, and including a Chalice of the Void and a bunch of Eldrazi. So, I mean, that was only like turn 5 or 6. That was really good.
Yep. And you're just seeing the resilience of Dredge in action for the umpteenth time. You know, Hamilton had 2 things that were pretty good. That Ravenous Trap was strong. Chalice on 2, pretty strong in the matchup. But unless you're actually closing, you got to do more than that. The Dredge deck is just going to continue to accrue value, apply pressure. You know, Conflagrate for 2 mana is just worth 7 damage there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of the strength of the deck, and one of the things that Creeping Chill added to the strategy. Decks like Tron, even Eldrazi Tron or big mana decks in general, could usually beat the Dredge decks by just playing normal Magic on their wavelength, right? Like an Anger of the Gods, or just going way over the top with something like Primeval Titan. Now, the Dredge deck no longer has to use the combat step to do the majority of its damage. Does a ton with Creeping Chill and a ton with Life and Limb and Conflagrate. It's pretty tough for some decks to beat, and there you saw the strength of that alternate game plan.
And you see, it looks like players are going back to sideboarding a little bit. I know with Dredge, it's kind of all about trimming the right things where you want to be. You also saw more cards. You know, you saw all those Planeswalkers in Game 1. It wasn't necessarily clear that Hamilton was going to be so heavy on Eldrazi. Maybe he wants to reach for Lightning Axe. We'll see exactly how Game 3 plays out here. But if you're interested in some insights on sideboarding, playing matches, you want to hear Todd Anderson talk about Magic some more.
What?
Every Tuesday and Thursday.
Don't put me on the spot like
on
that.
This very channel. I'm not putting you on the spot.
Oh, okay.
Putting you on the schedule.
Put me on the schedule. I like it.
Every week, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Check out Versus Live on this very channel.
Yeah. Versus Live, Ross Merriman, myself, doing a lot of work, trying to give y'all the best insights into Standard, Modern, sometimes Legacy. All the formats we play here on the SCG Tour. It's a fun show. We have a lot of cool stuff going on.
You play much Eldrazi Tron on the show?
Not in a long time. It kind of fell off the map. But, you know, I mean, Karn the Great Creator definitely got me interested in it again. I forget who, but a couple of weeks ago, someone posted like, "Oh, what should I play in Modern at the Invitational?" And I said Eldrazi Tron, and 2 people were like, "Hey, you got a deck list for it?" And I'm like, "No, I do not."
20-ish colorless lands.
Yeah, Blast Zone, 1x.
Chalice of the Void, 4.
4x. 4 Karn the Great Creator, a mishmash of cool sideboard stuff.
Don't forget the liquid metal coating.
Yeah, so the first list I saw didn't have liquid metal coating, and I was mad. I was like, it's just a Stone Rain every turn. It costs 2 mana. It's easy. Easy mode.
All right, players looking at their 7s here.
Now, I think that this matchup is relatively mulligan dependent. Both players wanting to have these pretty degenerate starts, both understanding that the other deck can really go way over the top if they have a weaker draw and don't really apply any pressure. Hamilton here looking at a hand. Looks like Chalice of the Void, Karn, All's Dust, a couple lands, Walk-in Ballista. I'd probably ship this back with only 1 Tron piece and no Eldrazi Temple.
Yeah,
like he agrees.
Kind of hand mostly only plays if the Chalice on 1 would be great, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would keep that hand against something like Is It Phoenix just specifically because of Chalice of the Void.
And you see both players taking a trip to Vancouver. They'll be going to 6.
Yeah, they'll be going to London soon, but not yet. Got to give it a little while.
I'm stoked, dude.
Yeah, the London Mulligan, I'm really looking forward to it. I played with it a little bit with Tron, and I think with Tron and Dredge, it's specifically very dumb, but with literally everything else, it just makes the games a lot better because decks just kind of function instead of mulliganing to 5 and not functioning. On the other hand, sometimes you win the game when you mulligan to 3 because your 3-card hand is Tron Piece, Exhibition Map, which is what I do. I did it twice. The first time I played the deck with London Mulligan, I did it twice, and I thought, man, this is not okay.
Just play a deck that's good against Tron.
My 5-card, look, my quote-unquote 5-card hand, right?
Yeah.
Absolute trash. Happily shipped a 4. 4-card hand, looking at 7. Absolute garbage. Threw it back again. 3, 2 Tron Piece, Exhibition Map, Snap Keep. First draw was Oblivion Zone. GG's. You win. Game's over. Both players on 6 here. Looks like we're ready to go. Turn 1 Tron Piece from Hamilton. He's going to be looking to assemble that here quickly, but he does have a Ravenous Trap to protect himself.
A lot of dredgers in Mullen's hand. Once again, he has Cathartic Reunion. Hamilton's second land will be Blast Zone. So not online for Tron, and no action either. No Mind Stone.
Does have a Walk-in Ballista he could play. I kind of like getting that one down onto the battlefield just to start chipping in for 1. But Hamilton obviously deciding that maybe saving it for later is a bit better. So you can get a bunch of counters on it and perhaps a 1/1. Not really the best at this juncture.
Mullen fetches to 19. Stomping Grounds the find. Is that Ravenous Trap in Hamilton's hand again? You know, Mullen's already been hit by it. And with this kind of start, you start to wonder what's in your hand that's making you keep this 6. We'll see what Mullen does. Probably just has to play into the trap, right?
I think so. There's a chance, though, that if his first and second dredge are nice or just pretty good, he may fail to dredge on the 3rd one on purpose, just so he protects himself from Ravenous Trap a little bit.
So we'll shock to 17, discard Stinkweed Imp, Life from the Loam. No sign of restraint yet.
All right, that's 1 Creeping Chill, and you can snag those with the trigger on the stack to keep them from being detrimental.
Life from the Lone Dredge, Prized Amalgam joining the party, as is Ancient Grudge.
If I'm Hamilton, this one's just going to fly. You get to zap me for 3 all you want. That's fine. Colin's going to draw a card on the 3rd draw from Cathartic because he's out of dredgers. But no harm, no foul. That Prized Amalgam not coming back this turn. I was going to get drained for 3 from a Creeping Chill. Who cares?
Yeah, trigger's going to resolve.
Yeah, now Hamilton's just going to be looking to draw some lands off the top. He really needs some lands. He's got a handful of action.
So Hamilton to 17, Mullen to 20. We'll go back Hamilton's way, and Eldrazi Temple.
That was a good one, but still a little shy. And now he's going to think again, do I want to cast the Walk-in Ballista? Answer is no.
He has a Karn, but not a Thought Knot Seer, just passes.
Yep. Stinkweed Imp the draw from Mullins. Does he have another Cathartic Reunion? It looks like he does. How much does he want to invest in said Cathartic Reunion? We will see shortly. Mullins needs to trigger that prized amalgam to put Hamilton to the test, force him to use that Ravenous Trap in a spot where he's okay with it, as opposed to in the middle of a big dredge turn. But again, Mullins does have the option here. If he wants to go Cathartic, you do discard first. So you go discard Stinkweed Imp and Life and Loam or one of your other dredgers, and then dredge the first time, see if it's good. Dredge the second time, see if it's good. And at some point, if it's good enough, you just don't dredge the third time, so you protect like the next few cards from that Ravenous Trap.
Ooh, he's just going to cast Life from the Loam, playing cautiously around that potential Ravenous Trap. Bloodstained Mire, Blood Crypt, and Gemstone Mine are the targets.
I don't hate it, because he can also just slow dredge next turn, and he might be just giving Hamilton the idea that his hand is not great. He was very reliant on the Cathartic Reunion, and he bricked. You know, that may be the signal he's giving off.
Plays Stomping Ground tapped. And I believe has to discard. Yep, discard Stinkweed Imp. We'll go Hamilton's way. Misses on the land, draws another Reality Smasher. That doesn't play.
Yeah, not yet. He needs to draw one more mana source so he can start playing those Reality Smashers and attacking for 5, 10, and 15.
Right, Mullen dredges the Imp, finds Narcomoeba. All right, this one might have to force the action.
Yeah, and this actually might force Michael's hand because of that Creeping Chill as well. If he does, though, Collins is going to have a field day with the rest of this turn.
Yeah, just still has that Cathartic Reunion.
Yeah, and the Stinkweed Imp's currently in his hand from the dredge, so Hamilton's just going to let it go. I don't hate it, because he's very clearly aware that Collins could have a really disgusting turn here.
Well, that Creeping Chill trigger, that's going off. That'll put Hamilton to 14, Mullen to 23. There's a lot of cards in Mullen's hand and Conflagrate in the graveyard.
Yeah, I would not be surprised here if Collins actually just plays this really slowly. Hard cast Stinkweed Imp, brings back Prized Amalgam. Why overextend? Hamilton is not doing anything to pressure you. His hand is clearly full of things like Ravenous Trap or uncastables.
Here's a tap of 3, and yeah, hard cast Stinkweed Imp.
Yeah, going to probably play his land for the turn as well, so he can start doing things like cast Life and Loam and Conflagrate in the same turn. He's going to be threatening Hamilton's life total here, potentially as early as next turn with that Loam plus Conflagrate.
Blood Crypt tapped, Prized Amalgam. All right, now the Ravenous Trap hits.
Yeah, and that's a fine turn to do it, or fine time to do it. You didn't snag the Creeping Chill number 2 or the Narcomoeba, but you basically kept yourself from getting obliterated by a Cathartic Reunion for a turn.
Now, bricks again, cast Walking Ballista for 1.
Yeah, and this is kind of the downside of playing Eldrazi-tron. You have these really schizophrenic draws that feature sometimes having turn 3 Tron with a million, expensive cards being cast all at once, and sometimes you draw 3 lands that don't cast anything.
Yeah. There's a high disparity in the number of cards that these two players see from their deck every game.
Right. Mullins here going to go for that Cathartic here. This is going to be a big turn.
Yeah. Stinkweed Imp and a land will be discarded. Dredge 5.
He needs to hit another Dredger here off of that Stinkweed Imp, though, to go ballistic.
Creeping Chill, Conflagrate, and a Dredger. How about that?
Yeah, that's a nice one. So he's going to dredge another Stinkweed Imp.
Bloodghast.
Perfect.
Life from Loam, Creeping Chill.
This game's over, folks. This game is over. He still has 1 draw left. So he draws another card. He can Conflagrate for, I believe, 7. The 2 chills go put Hamilton to 8, and then 7 is 1, and then attack with 2 flyers. Sounds like enough to me.
So there's the draw. Resolve these triggers here. Chill 1, you're at 11, I'm at 26. Chill 2, you're at 8, I'm at 29.
In the famous words of Arnold Schwarzenegger from the classic film Batman Forever. Chill.
Masterful writing.
That movie was all one-liners.
Is that the one where the theme song is Kiss from a Rose by Seal?
I don't know. I always get Batman Forever and Batman and Robin confused. I'm actually pretty sure that's actually Batman and Robin now that I think about it. I'm pretty sure Batman Forever was not that bad. It had Tommy Lee Jones and
Jim Carrey
as the Riddler. And then I'm pretty sure that the third one of that series was Batman and Robin, where Arnold Schwarzenegger and some random person playing Bane, I believe.
Yeah. Bane was not as good in that one as it was in the Christopher Nolan Batman.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that conflict rate. Collins Mullen, 2-1 over Michael Hamilton. He's going to advance to 7-0 here at the Season 1 Invitational.
Yeah, Collins Mullen, a